my final guest today is someone that I've met over the years, and absolutely incredible character. Does so much hard work for not only local business but also national. And I'm also going to throw the word global in there as well. And that's Tony Robinson. So, Tony, good afternoon and welcome today.
Fantastic to be with you, Simon. I'm one of your greatest fans. It's wonderful. It's a privilege and an honour to be with you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And a fan of a fan. Let's just say that, because I'll be honest, I've followed a lot of the work that you've done over the years with the Microbiz Matters movement and everything else that you've done. And I've got a copy of your book as well. And, absolutely fantastic. And it's great to actually be able to have this dialogue with you and talk with you. And on our special day as well, where we're literally been talking about startup business and some of the challenges that people face when they start a business. So do you want to give us a brief background for all the viewers and everything about, you've done a hell of a lot, so I don't know how brief this can be, but you just give us an introduction to yourself and, what you've seen over the years.
Yeah, I can be very brief on it, really. And as you know, I love talking about startups. So I'm looking forward to this, and just throw any questions at me at all, Simon, and I love it. But I mean, basically, we started our business in 1986. I'd been chief executive of a major American multinational, and so 1986 is a lot of years ago, so many years ago. Most people haven't been born then. So it's a long time in business with my business partner Claire. And so we've been, and she lives very close to Northampton as well. So so we've just been very lucky. But about 10 years into running our business, so we're now to 1996, and I will be very brief. That's when I started getting involved in. I'd never been really. All our clients were large companies, very, very big companies, household names. I mean, some of them like Lord Sugar, for example, was a direct client of ours. It was those kind of people. But I got involved in founding a number of different organizations regarding skills. And I eventually got involved in founding an organization called Small Firms Enterprise Development Initiative, or that's the name we gave it in the end. And it's still going today. And we were lucky to get a huge amount of money from the government regarding research, really. And then it was like a bolt from the blue, really. I mean, the research showed, we actually did telephone interviews with 30,000 business owners. I mean, that's huge, isn't it? Absolutely massive. But the research showed that over a number of years, we kept on doing the research, and it just showed the waste of talent by not helping startups properly. In other words, we could actually show very clearly that if the right conditions were there for your startup, and unfortunately it's not the things that are written in self-development books, and it's not the things that are said on a lot of government schemes, because they're trying to sell you their solution, if you like. The startup is very vulnerable. So you've got the difference between 20% surviving the first 3 years of the business, and 80%, Simon, surviving the 3 years of the business and going on to build the successful businesses that everybody wants. And so that set me on a mission, really. So although I've been, I've got to make ends meet, we've had to run our own businesses since then. You're actually talking, 25 years really of things like me campaigning for paying 30 days or less, founding the Microbiz Matters movement. But the whole of my concentration has always been on startups, and I do include the first 18 months in that, first 18 months of trading, is about actually helping more people nationally, and as you said, internationally. I have, I've been lucky to be invited to speak internationally on this subject, and I'm a business owner. I'm still doing it. I'm chair of Yorkshire in business. I'm patron of the John Cracknell Youth Enterprise Bank, where we give very small grants to startups. I'm involved in startups on a practical level as well. So, but it's just a complete waste. I suppose I would put it in like the waste is people selling a millionaire mindset mentality.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
saying you've got to have lots of funding, and you pitch for funding, and what you need is a pitch deck and a business plan, and when what you actually need to be doing is, until you've got enough customers, you need to be bootstrapping, not borrowing. Then when you've got customers, fine, and you can actually see the money coming in. I don't mind you borrowing then, because you'll know that you can repay it. Yeah. You don't want investors at the beginning, because you don't know if the business is viable or not. You haven't learned. It's a learning by doing kind of thing. So that's been my passion, is really to and of course, it does involve campaigning, because things like 3 million people being excluded from income support, many of those were people that had just started their business, of course, so they didn't qualify anywhere for any income support. So it's just like, so we've continued with our businesses, but what we're here to do, to talk about today, is what I've always been passionate about, which is that how can 80% of all startups in the UK survive those first 3 years?
Yeah, fantastic. And you mentioned the excluder. Obviously, I know a lot of people locally who were in that situation. Obviously very, very challenging times for the whole of the globe at the time. But obviously, just starting out a business, and all of a sudden they find themselves with no security, no stability in their life or anything. And it's been challenging. And that's where we've been trying to help them through as well. Because when you start a business, it really is literally, as you say, bootstrapping, isn't it? And do you want to sort of explain what you mean by that? Because I would actually met you. I'd never actually heard of it before. So
well, I mean, the idea is a kind of bootstrapping comes from kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, by your own efforts, if you like, rather than relying on anybody else. The whole thing about my happypreneurship philosophy is it's a little bit stoic, really, in terms of the fact that nobody's going to come and save you. You've got to do everything yourself. And in actual fact, one of the worst things you could do is, before you've got customers, I say, is borrow money from a bank, or even a startup loan kind of thing, if you haven't got any customers and you haven't been doing any test trading. So what you need to do is you need to beg, steal, or borrow from your own resources. And I say to people, you need other income streams coming in while you've got that. Because that's a much better way of doing it. It's a much better way to. I do like the concept of side hustles. People having side hustles, not starting their business until they've actually got a proven little business model with and they know how to grow it. So the whole, I did it with I got some. We got some money from my mother, and Claire's father gave some money. We were in the lucky days ourselves of being able to get an overdraft. You can't get an overdraft for love nor money nowadays, but we got one of those. And you've got to do anything really to make sure that you've got enough income to get you through this test trading period. And I always put on the end of test trading. I always say, preferably while you're still in a job, actually do. Yeah. So, I mean, let's take a practical example. Let's say you're brilliant at making ice cream and selling ice cream, and what you want is a high street ice cream shop. Yeah. So why not make your ice cream? Why not put it on a cart or on a bicycle or whatever, and get some bookings at weddings and different things at a weekend when you're not working and kind of thing, to prove your model, to get some customers, to get some word of mouth. And eventually, when you've done enough making and selling ice cream and knowing how to get the customers for it and the word of mouth on your side, then you might consider actually borrowing some money to actually open your shop on the high street or your ice cream bar or whatever. Does that make sense? So it's very practical, very simple. And it's God, it's so important. And the other thing you've got to do is ask somebody like me or you for help.
Yeah, more you than me, I think. But
no,
I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
But you've got to reach out to somebody who's, it's not a straight line. All the books will suggest it's a straight line up there. It's like, we can be up one day and we can be right down in the pits the next day. And it's how are we going to manage that? One of the things I say in happypreneurship is about, you've got to love what you're doing, and you've got to be doing something you're good at. Otherwise, you won't be able to deal with all these ups and downs and the uncertainty. And there's always uncertainty, and then there will be things that slap you around the face, like, Ukraine or COVID, or, they've 2008 hit a lot of people, kind of thing, or the people that had, pension savings, or that suddenly got done by the loan charge. And, there's so many different things that are gonna hit you. But it's all okay if you're always pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. You're in control. You're controlling your own destiny. The last thing I would ever want is one of those, I know some of them, Dragon's Den investors in my business in the early days, because you don't know what you're doing, and you don't want the pressure from other people so yeah, those kind of things. But I think you're absolutely right that one of the great things you're doing is creating a network, if you like. And so that's the other thing. I always say that pre-startup, you should actually join a network. I mean, I've got a friend who came along to our last annual Microbiz Matters Day, and he actually took 2 years of test trading before he started his business. And it was about online advertising, really. I suppose it was like Google clicks and Facebook clicks and various things. It was that kind of business. He took 2 years to stayed in the job for that time. He's been winning awards left, right, and centre now. He's been in business 5 years now. It's really important. And he just kept going to networking meetings and asked people questions. It wasn't selling, but he'd ask business owners, what happens if they want to increase their sales through Google or through what. Do you know what I mean? He was learning all the time, and that's really important.
Yeah, fantastic. And what a great way to do it as well, because obviously I remember when we took the plunge in 2009. Plunge, that's the wrong word. The leap. Let's say we took the leap and we entered into this amazing world we're into today. But I mean, for us, my parents were out of work. I just lost my job, and I thought, well, there's only one way we can do this, and that's actually create our own future. And we literally threw ourselves into that debt position on day one, and then we were scrabbling around trying to find a repayment. Now, don't get me wrong, it pushed us, and it pushed us hard, being in debt from day one, because to me, I describe it was like buying a car where you outlay for that machinery, and then you charge people to get in it like a taxi. And the more your taxi gets, or your service gets better, the better the vehicle is. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, the challenges we faced and the concerns we faced of not making repayments, it wasn't nice. So Having started again, obviously, NMBN is a startup in itself. We're looking at how we can, as you say, bootstrap and build as we go forward. And things have been really good. And I think the thing is, we kind of spotted a little bit of a gap as well, which always helps, as we know. So,
Absolutely.
But no, it's brilliant. What would you say when it comes to starting a business would be some of the major things that people should look out for when they actually make that decision to start a company?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit on one, is that the majority of people, and one of the reasons for test trading is that you've got to be incredibly flexible, and what tends to the business opportunity industry, which I was the chief executive of an organization that sold business opportunities in the same way people sell franchises and various things, but they will always be selling you on the fact that their business model is the best in the world. It's absolutely fail safe. It's you can actually go with it. And unfortunately, a lot of people with startup, they get really enthusiastic regarding their idea, and they get a real passion for it, and they can see all these fantastic things happening to them. But you've actually got to be really, really pragmatic, and you've actually got to not fall in love with your idea. You've not got to fall in love with the big dream and putting the big cars on the whatever, or the advice that says, you've got to leap. You've got to go all in right at the beginning, because we're now talking about less than 1% of people that take that attitude to start your own business, because most of us find, and we certainly did, and one of the things I talk about a lot is multiple income streams. So, let's put that in straight from the beginning. It's not a good idea having all your eggs in one basket ever. We're always starting up new businesses, really. We might do it under the same company name, or Yorkshire in Business. I was telling you earlier about our pop-up shop cafes kind of things with Yorkshire in Business. Now, they've taken 9 months to break even, but then that's what we know is the reality of these kind of things, and that's another income stream coming in. Once you've got past break even, then you've got another income stream coming. So you've got to be flexible to actually listen. There's a book called The Mom Test, which is about listening, really understanding how to listen to customers and prospective customers, so that you can actually find out what they want and what they will pay for, rather than what you think the world needs and will love you for, and you'll be incredibly successful. It's like, how many people set up subscription-based things thinking thousands and thousands will actually come and they'll buy that subscription, or they'll spend huge amounts of money on creating the absolutely perfect video, because they know that how important brand is, and they know the quality of the video and various things. And you see it at the bottom of the YouTube channel is a big thing for me, but you see it at the bottom of theirs, they've had 20 views. So honestly, it's about being flexible to not so fall in love with your idea that you don't actually listen to what might work and is working, and various things like that. And that's really important. And that's one of the reasons for asking for help from business owners that understand your sector. So therefore, some of my friends from Hull came to Scarborough to talk to us and see our different shops that we've been opening in Scarborough and various things, and how we're doing it and various things. And obviously we wouldn't help them if they were in Scarborough, but they've they've come from Hull to Scarborough, and we're really happy to help them, show them around, give them ideas, etc. So, it's not just asking any old business owner. It's probably asking a business owner for help that understands the needs of your customers.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's a great way to put it, actually. I mean, even with what I know and what I've seen, there's so many different ways of thinking of things. And that's really opened my mind on what you're saying there as well. So and that's why I'm just so grateful that you've actually joined us today on the NN Startup Day, and actually, sharing this knowledge with us, because it can be quite daunting, as we all know, quite exciting, quite exhilarating. But on the other side, if things aren't right, there's no sustainability, is there? And obviously that's a key word that we hear these days, sustainability, all the time. It's how sustainable are we? And it's such a big thing to work towards as well. I mean, what would you say to any businesses that are obviously looking to grow to the next level, maybe of 18 months into 3 years with the sustainability?
Well, I think it's very, very difficult for this phrase scale up. It's important, I think, everybody out there actually understands where it came from. It came from like people on the World Economic Forum and the banks, as usual. And basically what the whole idea of scale up was making money for investors. I mean, that's where the term came from. Because in other words, if they could persuade business owners to scale up, then they would take their investments or their loans or their whatever in order to do it. Well, in reality, what I talk about with growth is organic growth. So after 18 months let's say the 18 months to 3 years. So we've grown even. So I've always done it, and I've always advised people. And the most successful, my schoolmate is a guy called Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who owns Ineos, and, if you don't know Ineos for the fact that he's worth 19 billion pounds himself and is the richest business owner that's ever been in Europe. You will know them for his, cycling and Ineos brand on Formula One cars, and he's got 2 football clubs now and all that kind of stuff. And you've got to remember, he's organically grown that business kind of thing. He uses junk bonds, but the fast repayment thing is based on the fact that he knows when he buys a big facility from Shell, that he can, within a year, make 30% more profit than Shell did or BP. It's not a gamble. He knows the process. He is, he's a chemical engineer. He knows the process. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to scale up, you must scale up, not thinking of investors coming in, but on things you actually know and can do really well. And so the important thing is then to find another niche. Now, what you might do is you might replicate yourself by taking on your first employee, for example, after that 18 months. And you might actually give that new niche, which is like a startup in that new sector, to that first employee. And that's how a lot of people do it. I mean, Charlie Mullins, who you know from Pimlico, how did he do it? Well, he did it in exactly the same way. He first of all started to think about, I must get money, I must borrow, and I must create this fantastic bigger plumbing business. And then the bank foreclosed on me. It's never allowed a banker anywhere near his premises since. And so what he started doing was employing, one at a time, Charlie Mullins. He made them into absolutely Charlie Mullins plumber. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then he got them a van with, you know, funny things on it, yeah, with the Pimlico plumbers, whatever. And then he got celebrities, etc., to endorse what they were doing and things. But you see, he did it one by one by one by one, Charlie Mullins. Yeah, but he couldn't do it. His whole thing was, I need more me's. So he then grew his business, and most people do it as well. Grow it by automation as well. So, for example, you don't want an expensive, let's say me or you, for example, you don't want our time spent on booking appointments, for example, if you're going to grow the business. So you get somebody at a lower salary that's really happy working for you, booking the appointment. So there's no wasted time for you, and your time is being spent on the actual delivery. So, you know, it's as simple as that. It's replicating in new niches and new different areas, etc., what you do. And then every now and again, when you get really successful, about 3 years' time or 4 years' time, and you've started growing, then you might like to do as Sir Jim Ratcliffe does and take a punt on something else, etc. But he does the same thing again. He test trades. You know, he nearly bought Chelsea, as you know. He was one of the one, but he bought a second division Swiss team about 10 years ago to do his test trading on. Yeah. Does that make sense? You know,
yeah, absolutely.
So he wanted to learn the football business before. Now he's now got Nice, and the reason he's got Nice is because he's worked out the monies if you get into the European, you know, the Champions League, yeah, and you know, Nice have got a very good chance of getting 4 of the French places every year.
Very clever.
Do you know what I mean? He's learned the business. He doesn't do anything at a
yeah, very clever, very switched on people.
He learns it first, and that's what I'm saying is really about growing and sustainability. It's doing it. So, I mean, for example, the book thing with me. I mean, I've obviously this is the one that's most important to me, because that's the whole happypreneurship philosophy, if you like, because I do think it's important. These startups are starting off with the thing of doing something that they are going to love doing and that they're good at, you know, and they're proud to control their own destiny, do it themselves, because they won't be able to keep going in, you know, and there's too much depression and sadness around, kind of thing. And you know, but things like books, things like speaking fees, things like as doing training courses, award ceremonies, all these things were new ways of creating new income streams in our business, but they're also a fallback position. So should the main bit of our business fall apart for some reason, let's say, unfortunately, and it happens now and again, especially with small micro business owners, that they have one customer that is giving them 50% of their income, kind of thing.
I've been there with that one.
Absolutely, and you're not going to refuse it. Oh, I mean, you're not going to say no. I don't want one client doing that. So what you've got to do is you've got to build these other little income streams. There's that, you know, all the time, because there will be the day when you lose that customer with the big bucks, kind of thing.
And that actually happened to me. So those words are absolutely, you know, so true. And it actually happened. I think it was year 4. We lost a third of our turnover overnight, and it was a case of, how do I get through this? And someone just said to me the next day, how much have you lost a month? And I said, about £3,000 a month. And they said, well, what was your first month's sales? I went, £356.81. Right. Well, what made you get out of bed for 350 quid of sales? And I said, yeah, absolutely right. You know, what did make me get out of bed for 350 quid? So, you know, it kind of refired me back up. And of course, then we're back up to, working with what we did have. But what we recognised was we had capacity to take on more, and it was just really filling that capacity and getting things moving. But Tony, I'm really glad you mentioned your book there, because I'm just conscious we've coming towards the end. But where can people find your book if they wanted to buy a copy of your book and understand more about your life story and your journey as well?
All right, so the Happypreneur is it's available in all bookshops. So I mean, you can go into a bookshop, but they'll probably order it if you're not in Scarborough, kind of thing, or something like that. They're ordered, so it's obviously available on Amazon as a Kindle, and you can have a look at some of my other books there as well. So there's it's Kindle, and it's available obviously as this paperback from Amazon as well. So that's great. It's 400 pages, which sounds a lot, but people that have read it, and you can see all the reviews on Amazon, a lot of people, it's the only book they've ever read from all the way through, kind of thing. Because I think that Taryn Lee Johnson, who wrote it with me, has just done a sensational job in actually making something very readable. And it doesn't matter whether you're working in a big company or you're working in a small company. Happypreneurs are everywhere, and the whole basis of it was that I worked with a guy called, or I followed a guy called Henry Stewart, who's called Mr. Happy, and he for the last 30 years, and his aim always was to ensure that people in the workplace were happy 80% of the time in their working life. And I just took that whole concept to say, well, how can we actually make enterprising people that want to actually make ends meet through their own endeavors and control their own destiny a bit more, even if they're in a job at the moment, how can we actually make sure that they're happy 80% of the time being enterprising? So that's what it's all about. And there are a lot of great people, like some of you met, like Tim Campbell from The Apprentice, Kanye King, Mobo Awards founders. There are lots of fantastic contributors to it, and they all gave up time for that. So
yeah, fantastic. And I actually met Kanya at Charlie Mullins's event that you ran a couple of years ago with the Microbiz Masters Day. And it's funny actually, because I didn't know who he was. I stood on his foot, and he just had these white shoes on, and it was my footprint across his white shoes. But absolutely brilliant, and great to follow his success and his journey as well, because obviously he's done very well there with his business and everything. But listen, Tony, thank you ever so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Keep up the good work. You keep up the good work as well. So it's brilliant. You've inspired me, and to be honest with you, with what you've done with Microbiz Masters Day over the years as well, that's where some of my thinking's come from as to what we're doing today. So that the impact and the value that we've been adding locally here in our area has come from some of the work you've been doing.
And it's so important. It's so important that all the startups, from the work you're doing with this and etc., they get involved in your network, because that's the best learning they'll ever get. And when the days get a bit difficult, then having somebody to reach out and speak to in the network is just like so important. And keep on, Simon. Well done. You're doing great.
Thank you.